of the
of the
United
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Very good. So with that, we'll go right into the agenda. Vince?
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing on the agenda is we have a presentation from Mr. Stephen Gelber and Bridget McLaughlin on the Little Libraries.
I have just promoted both of them as panelists, so they'll be joining as panelists shortly.
Okay.
Okay, so they seem to be on.
Mr. Gelber, you can go ahead.
Oh, all right. Hello, everybody. How are we doing?
Good.
Just gonna share my screen here. Can everyone see PowerPoint on my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm not sure if obviously I know you all probably saw the letter that I sent you a couple months back. Since then, I've had a lot of discussions with Bridget in the building department. Is anyone even loosely familiar with those conversations, or just so I have an understanding of background?
I have not spoken to Bridget about it. Anybody else in the council?
All right. So the Hackensack Elks, let me just advance the slide here. Did the slide change? Because sometimes it doesn't. Okay.
Yes.
So I just put together a quick presentation to talk about the project that we're looking to accomplish. So here's just a quick agenda. I'll just go through obviously who the Elks are and what we do, the grants that are available to us and how we do invest them back in the community, and then the project that we're trying to accomplish here. Elks, as you're probably well aware, there's an Elks Lodge in town. We're at Linden Street and Anderson Street, the intersection there by the train station. But like most service organizations, obviously it's some international, but we're a national organization, and there's obviously a foundation that backs all individual Elks Lodges around the country. The Elk National Foundation, as of the end of 2020, had an endowment of just north of about $650 million, and they award grants within local communities each year. The foundation itself spent about $40 million last year on individual charitable products and projects and endeavors, and about 17 million of that went directly to Elks Lodges to do charitable work in their communities. They offer community investment grants to every Elks Lodge so that they can invest right back in their communities and build better communities. And a lot of the work that we do is with the youth and the children in our community. So a lot of people probably think Elks Lodge, and they all have been to probably an event at an Elks Lodge. And, you know, they probably think a lot of older gentlemen drink, sitting around the bar and where you hang out on a Friday night. But there's a lot of charitable work that the Elks do, and it's not just for veterans. But if anyone's familiar with the Elks, we do a lot of work for special needs children and just the youth in general. Every year, there's between $11,500 and $13,500 of grants that are available to us from the National Foundation. The big grants, there's really 5 categories. The gratitude grant, which is kind of flexible and just available for any community-based project. Spotlight grants are $2,000, and they're available to support a literacy-based project. Beacon grants between $2,500 and $3,500 per year for an ongoing project. And we use our Beacon grant every year. We've used it for at least 7 years now. We host the Children of the Holly Center for a lunch with Santa and presents. Promise grant, which has been suspended for the last 2 years due to COVID. That's for youth-based projects, specifically for youth, and Freedom grants, which go towards veteran-based projects. So for the last decade that I've been involved with the Elks, These are just some of the projects that we've done giving back to the community. Each year we sponsor children from the high school and the middle school to go to a peer leadership and drug awareness conference. We've sponsored Slam Dunk the Junk cleanup community cleanup day. We've sent countless care packages and support to deployed service members. We have helped homeless veterans with housing in terms of providing them with furniture and supplies that they may need when moving into an apartment. We have our annual lunch with Santa, and you'll see a very terrible rendition of a Santa Claus there. We do annual scholarship contests and supporting the Eagle Scout projects. We have holiday themed nights several times a year, whether for Valentine's Day, Christmas, Halloween, St. Patrick's Day for our special needs youth. We support those in need with feeding of the homeless and food pantry drives. And then just specifically with the youth of the community, we have an annual hoop shoot and soccer shoot contest. We have our college scholarship awards. We do a student of the month competition. And then with the children from the Boys and Girls Club and the Holly Center, we have taken them to roller skating events, laser tag, mini golf, the movies, the Harlem Globetrotters, the circus, the Bronx Zoo, and each year, of course, we sponsor a t-ball and a basketball team for the rec department. So we do a lot of work with the youth, and just over the last decade alone, grants alone, not even lodge funds, have been reinvested back into the community to the tune of over $100,000. We also have our annual walkout on drugs, which we do with the kids from the middle school, and so much more that we do in the community. Working with the Johnson Public Library, they've been a really great partner of ours for the last few years. We've done a number of literacy-based projects with them, including this past year, we installed a reading nook in 2 local laundromats to start. There's a picture of one there, so that families have a place for the kids to read or take books home when their parents are doing their laundry. We've hosted community baby showers where we have kind of our vulnerable population that go in and they're introduced to resources within the community, whether they're the county social services, applying for aid and different programs, and just being introduced to the library at large. Library's done a fabulous job with that program. They've had Hackensack Hospital come down and talk about postpartum depression. They've had them talk about infant CPR. They've had the police department come and do installing of car seats and everything. And we as a lodge, we provided diapers and formula and all of those kind of necessities that were distributed to families at the community baby showers. And we also donated over 50 brand new coats, hats, and scarves last year so that children that needed them could be introduced to the services of the library by coming in to receive a coat and just being introduced to the children's library. So the Johnson Library and the children's department there, which I'm sure you guys are well aware, they do fabulous work, and they've been just a really great partner of ours. And as a lodge on a whole, we've just really enjoyed the projects that we've done for the youth, and working with the library has just been such a great benefit to both them and to us in terms of being able to give back to the kids. So there is a 6th grant that's available to us that we've never applied for. It's an extremely competitive process. But it's one grant of $10,000 that's available to us. And if the project is successful, it is renewable annually to expand the project and to further our efforts. We've never had a project that we thought made sense to do the application because it's very competitive that would rise to the level of other lodges that have been awarded this grant. And this year, we think we have a project because we've made such a great partner with the library and have had such great success with these literacy projects. The impact grant itself is $10,000. It's awarded to lodges throughout the country to do one significant and meaningful project in the community. The steps are that in July of every year, we have to outline a project intent statement, which we've done, and our intent statement was approved as being substantial enough and of enough interest that it would give enough benefit to the community that the Grand Lodge is interested in supporting it. And they have given us a full application, which we're working through now which is very extensive and is going to be many, many hours of work on behalf of the lodge. And in December to January, we have to submit our application November 1st, and then the scoring process happens for about 6 weeks. And then we would find out in December or January if we are awarded that grant. And then in the spring of 2022, we would be able to move forward with actually commencement of our project. And our project is installing little libraries across town. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the Little Library Project. It's actually a national movement, and we wouldn't call it Little Library because we wouldn't actually formally affiliate with Little Library because there's an additional cost to do that. But the way that it works is there are little library boxes like what's shown there on the right, and they're installed on host volunteers of residents in the community would volunteer to put this on their front lawn. Obviously, we would love for these to be in public parks as well, but we understand completely that from the perspective of the city, you can't award us the ability to put them in a public park, and then other organizations may ask to put their things. So we understand that might not be feasible. But we do want to move forward with putting these on volunteer hosts' front lawns. And what we would do is stock them with books and resources in a list that would be provided by the library for age-appropriate materials. And we'd start obviously with all children. And the intent here is to bring the library to the community. And the library would provide us different resources, pamphlets on different events that are being run at the library so that we can advertise directly to the children and bring them to the library as well. But if we had 25, 30 boxes of these initially throughout different areas in the community, and we would have bilingual materials and obviously strictly English materials in these boxes, we would be able to foster additional literacy and have ongoing programs where we'd have reading days at a public park. And the main idea here would be to do, if we could get buy-in from the school, but obviously we're taking this in steps, and right now it's getting the project approved, would be doing a summer reading initiative where we would create the concept of like a library card and make it a contest where you get points for books read and points for different boxes visited, to try to get buy-in from the community that the children are actually participating in using these boxes. And if after the first year we show success, we would hopefully get additional funding and be able to expand the program with more resources and even more boxes. Is there any questions so far before I go on to kind of how it's been received and what our actual kind of plan for going forward is and the support that we'd be looking for?
I'm liking what I'm hearing, Stephen.
All right. So I actually had this idea when I was actually visiting my parents. They had moved out of state. They're in North Carolina. And in the community of Wilmington in Wrightsville, there's a lot of these boxes. And while I was down there, I noticed that both kids and adults were using them pretty substantially. Like when I was driving around town, I would see kids coming back from a box with a book. And I just thought it would be a great thing to bring back. And then doing additional research, I found that Maywood has a bunch of boxes. There's actually a box at a school in Hackensack, I believe it's Jackson Avenue. Saddlebrook has a few boxes on Market Street, and Fairlawn actually has them in their public parks. So it's not a foreign concept to this area, but I did learn that obviously in some towns they did have zoning questions. So I spoke with Bridget, and she's determined that the planning and the zoning board have both said that this would not have any type of variance requirements or any issues with the current zoning law, as long as we obviously adhered to, property owners' consent, that they didn't become a nuisance, that they were maintained, and that there was proper setbacks, and that they didn't, interfere with lines of sight at corners, et cetera, for driving and walking. So I put out one Facebook post to the Hackensack Happenings group, just kind of a picture of a library box, and this is the concept that we're trying to do. Would we have community buy-in? Obviously, this is just people who have, given, over 50 people have said, love this or like this, and commented back, thank you for sharing, wonderful, looking forward to this happening. Please let me know, happy to volunteer. And then when we got that feedback, I just put together a quick survey, sent it out in the same group, and said, if you're interested in volunteering in any way, please just fill this out. So far, over 32 families have said that they would volunteer to host a box, to maintain the box, and to monitor the content in that box. So having that list, and that's not even, getting to the point where we're approved and actually advertising this, I would hope we would have a lot more volunteers, and then we could actually work with the building and zoning departments to choose the right locations where is appropriate for these, and have at least 25 of them in year one roll out, where we can put them and stock them with books. So from a perspective of getting support from the city, obviously mentioned, I spoke with Bridget. Zoning and building don't have zoning, building and planning don't have any immediate issues with this, other than making sure lines of sight are not obstructed, rights of way are kept clear, and that we are able to monitor, have a plan in place to monitor the content and the maintenance of the box, which at least initially, and we would obviously work with volunteer hosts on this, but they have all signed on that they would be willing to at least be in regular communication with us as to, hey, our box needs this, or, it's out of materials, or someone put, spam in it. So we would come and clean that up. In terms of the actual support we're looking for from the council and the city administration, it's just the broad support of the project concept. And then if approved within reason, helping us to just advertise that the boxes are a thing in town, whether that's on the community website, whether it's in social media postings, and when we wanted to do events, whether they were in, if we went to Stide Park or Carver Park on a Saturday and, called the ice cream truck, and we, paid for the ice cream truck to come and give ice cream to the kids. And we just had the library come out and volunteers come out to do reading days. If we did that on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and then if possible, to work with us on streamlining the application, because we've talked to Bridget that we're going to do a zoning application per box just to ensure that they're in a proper location with a proper setback. So, if we were to erect 25 of these and have a $50 per permit application fee, it would eat up about 15 to 20% of our budget roughly on the projects. So if possible, if we could streamline that process and do like a bulk application fee or a reduced or waived application fee, just so that we could further the benefits of the project by buying more materials and more supply and more resources that go in the boxes. And that's really what we'd be looking for from the administration of the city. And then obviously, if there's any questions or follow-up, to the extent, we're happy to, answer anything, consider anything additional that we haven't already considered, and make sure that this is just a beneficial project for everybody.
So no, I love the concept, Stephen. It's the first I've actually seen it. So great presentation. I don't know whether you know or not, I was in Elk earlier in my life. I was actually the youngest officer in the Elks in the Elmwood Park Lodge at the time. But I know how benevolent of an organization it is and how much they do with Camp Moore and especially with the crippled children and things of that nature. So this is a great direction to go, especially with literacy where it's at in this country right now. So I think it's a great idea. I'm all in. I don't know about the rest of the council, but count me in.
I think it's a great
Johnny,
idea.
if you ever want to re-up your membership, we're under 100 now, so we're always looking for new members.
Okay.
Stephen and Mayor, I believe we're prepared to waive some of those fees. I'll speak with Bridget on that and Ernie, and to help you, Steve. I think we're gonna help you with that, the cost for those fees.
Appreciate that.
The other thing I would recommend is, and you may have done it already, but it's never fun reinventing the wheel. So it's a new project for you, but obviously based on what you said, it's not new for other towns. Maybe May would be a good town to reach out to, or Fairlawn, or somebody who's Saddlebrook, for instance, who's already doing it successfully, and what kind of hurdles they've hit doing it. If they've had any issues that this might help you. I don't know. I'm sure you probably thought of that already.
Yes, thank you.
So, all right. Anybody else in the council have any comments?
I'm sorry.
No, I think it's a great idea. Quick question, Stephen, who constructs the boxes? Do we do that, or where's that come? I'm just thinking maybe it might be a great like Boy Scout project. Or
it will be. So so as of right now, it will be me in my driveway constructing these boxes. But we will be reaching out to whether it's, trying to get other organizations involved and perhaps the Interact kids at the high school, or the Boy Scouts. We have an Antlers Lodge within where we have kids from the high school who are, auxiliary Elks, if you will.
Okay.
So we are looking to get volunteers, and part of the survey was actually, there were questions on there about, I'm a good builder, I'd love to help construct them. I'm a good painter, I'd love to help paint them to make them look fun and inviting. So we are actually soliciting the community as well to get full buy-in to help us with this as well.
No, I think that's a great idea. And I think, if young kids get, involved, there's buy-in for them. So they go around town, they say, hey, I did that. And it's a great way to get kids out after this pandemic as well, and everybody out and just, reading outside instead of, inside behind a computer or on their couch. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
I am okay with the program, and maybe the people from the high school, they got a shop and they got all the tools and the equipment, and then maybe they can build the boxes for you. Okay.
Thank you, Leo.
I'm good with it as well, Stephen. I think sounds like a great project. I wish you luck. When will you know that it's a go from the organization?
So, at least right now, the community has at least shown very substantial buy-in and support of the project. So whether or not we get the funding from the Elk National Foundation, I think that even if it's smaller scale, that this is something that should be moving forward. It's just a matter of how much we can actually do with the funds we have and the support of the community we have. But the formal application is due November 1st. I just received it last week. I went through it. I started it last night. It's going to take a substantial amount of time to kind of get it where it needs to be for submission. But from November 1st, it's about 6 weeks to find out about a formal approval and funding.
So when are you looking, like, say everything goes well or whatever, wherever we can get help for you, should it not go as well as you planned, when would your expectation be that you would start this?
Oh, spring of 2022, to roll out for a summer reading project of 2022.
Sounds great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Next I have on the agenda is the discussion regarding the 10 ordinance and the update, which we had tabled at the last meeting because there was concerns from the mayor and council that we might be impacting or hurting the restaurant owners in the city that have used these tents as a result of COVID. I had a meeting with the construction official regarding this, and in the way the ordinance is written as it stands right now is that it's based on a category of the square footage concerning the tent size and whether or not it's spiked, whether or not it's weighted, and part of the reason why this was revisited was because of a project that's going to take place in the city involving an enclosure over evidently a tennis court of some sort, and the permits for that under the current ordinance would be exorbitant, to say the least, and would jeopardize the project. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is, the other thing that we have to take into consideration too is regarding the restaurant owners. As it stands right now, at the end of the year, come January 1, those tents that are currently in place, if they remain in place, are going to be subjected to the zoning and code enforcement again regarding permits to have those. So there is a chance that that may get delayed again, probably based on the election. But as far as the ordinance, after reviewing it, it seems to be okay, and there's not it's not a detriment to the restaurant owners that I can see. It would be the UCC and the zoning ordinance would apply once the executive order is lifted anyway.
Right. So as long as we're under executive order,
They're fine.
right. And there's going to come a time when we're no longer, obviously, hopefully, under executive order. And business will go back to normal, but they'll have the opportunity at that time that if we do get off executive order, it'll pretty much mean we're done with COVID. So this will be one benefit to the restaurants is they will be able to increase their size if they keep their tents, their normal business. Yeah.
As long as they adhere to the current zoning laws. Yes.
Post-COVID. Okay. Understood.
Okay.
No problem.
Next is regarding the parking ordinance edition for 100 Prospect. In that case, we modified the ordinance which to include 100 more parking, 100 Prospect. Yes, I'm sorry, not 100 more parking spaces. So that would be great though, wouldn't it? The only change to the language is in section 1, in which the current Prospect Avenue east sides were changed from a point 210 feet south of southerly curb line of Beach Street to a point 50 feet southerly thereof. The change is the language of from a point 25 feet south of the southerly curb line of Beach Street to a point 25 feet southerly thereof. Then 170 feet south of the southerly curb line of Beach Street to a point 23 feet southerly thereof. That is the only changes that were made to the ordinance regarding 100 Prospect. Any questions on that?
No.
No.
Next is concerning the pocket parks. It's my understanding that the council is in favor of 2 parking parks, 1000 Main Street and American Legion Drive at Prospect Avenue. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
The cost estimate for park number 1 is anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000. For park number 2 on American Legion Drive is $40,000 to $60,000. I'm just asking if the council is in favor of budgeting to proceed for this in 2022.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think it's a wonderful idea. It's something we've talked about a long time, Vince, before you became involved here. And I think that the Environmental Commission did a nice job at specking it out. And I think it would be great for the town. Great,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And the locations are acceptable to everybody.
great location.
Yes.
Okay. Last thing is we have our update, which we had promised to the residents regarding the combined sewer system and the stormwater update. So at this time, I will turn it over to Erin, Susan, Ryan to make their presentation on the update on the stormwater and sewer update.
They are currently rejoining right now as panelists.
Yes, Erin's up.
Yes, I'm here. I'll share my screen. I have a PowerPoint to share. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. This is the September 28th, 2021 sewer update. This update tonight's going to contain more information than I would normally consider for an update moving forward. But I thought it was important to highlight the recent history of sewer work within the city, what the city's been doing. I also wanted to clarify the impacts redevelopment has on the sewer. I think that this is something that needs to be just cleared up on the record. And then what I anticipate will be really the meat of the updates from this point forward, which is the status of current construction projects and a brief of any new sewer authorizations or projects that come forward. So with that, on my first slide, I wanted to give some frame of reference for everyone that's listening for the sewer work that's been occurring. And I limited this from 2019 until now. So I've only gone back until 2019, not even 3 years. There have been in excess of 100 sewer projects that have been authorized by the city since 2019. These projects range from large-scale planning and construction efforts to the numerous cleaning, televising, and investigation efforts that the city uses large-scale contractors for. So these aren't projects performed by the city's DPW, not the normal maintenance, nothing that the city staff investigates and if, in response to any resident complaints. These are true active projects, more than 100 of them. So I've gone through these projects and I just listed a few areas that they're occurring, just to show it's much more broad than what we will discuss on updates from this point forward. But I wanted everyone to know that it's beyond what our normal updates will entail. This list here is not just a known issue list. Believe me, we wouldn't have enough room on this PowerPoint. We know that. These are projects. These are areas being investigated, designed, or they're under construction now. So let's just run through a few of them. I thought it was important to start with the long-term control plan. This is the guidance document for the combined sewer drainage area. We've also done work for Brosis Creek, Main Street, multiple projects, multiple phases. I'm going to talk about how important that was. Clay Street, multiple phases, it's ongoing right now. We have Railroad Avenue, River Street, the Green Street area, the South Newman Street area, Lodi Street, Mercer Street, Pine Street, Voorhees Lane, Temple Avenue, Hudson Street, Water Street, East Kennedy Street, Polyfly Road, and then, like I said, the numerous cleaning and investigation contracts that have been undertaken. This is really across the city. To date, in excess of 1.7 million cubic feet of surcharge has been removed by sewer separation projects. So these projects might be just occurring within this single area, but they're having an impact of that magnitude on the entire drainage area. Further, multiple grants, low interest funding, and connection fees from redevelopment projects have been received by the city. The city's aggressively pursuing all of this to make sure that these projects can occur without an increase to the taxes. This has allowed the city to get ahead of their long-term control plan and to expedite these projects, which they have been doing. So next I wanted to clarify redevelopment and its impact on the sewer. I think this has been a misconception and it's important to clarify to move forward from this point. So the city's redevelopment not only has improved the city's sewer, it has to improve the city's sewer. I think it's important to understand this. It is required and it does improve the sewer and the surcharge that's experienced. And this is achieved by requiring redevelopment to achieve a few things. And I've listed them here. And it goes beyond this list. I just wanted to highlight the main ones. Firstly, any redevelopment is required to separate sewers, right? So much of the rehabilitation areas have aged buildings. Their infrastructure has the roof leaders tie in to the building sanitary sewer. So on the third floor, you have the roof leaders coming in and they're tying into the building's toilets and sinks. That's within the building. No matter what the city performs within their streets, that would never be separated without redevelopment or substantial improvement. Redevelopment corrects this and keeps the storm and the sewer separate on site. Next, redevelopment is required to reduce the stormwater flows that leave the site. This is reviewed by the planning board engineer in front of the planning board, Neglia. It's inspected during construction by the planning board engineer and the city. And then it's enforced by building and zoning, the department through code enforcement. These developments typically have a plan that they present to the planning board. They're available online as well. And they show that they're going to use stormwater facilities on their site to hold back the stormwater, to store the stormwater, to achieve reductions that are up to 50% for the smaller storm events. So we know Hackensack struggles with even the 2-year small storm event, a few inches of rain. Redevelopment is required to reduce the flow leaving their site by up to 50% for those, okay? So they're making a big difference for what leaves their site. Most of the time, redevelopment occurs on a lot that's already all hard surfaces now. Buildings, pavement, concrete. These existing sites have a lot of runoff that's coming off of them. Redevelopment makes them accountable to reduce the runoff that comes off from the site, which improves the capacity within the sewers. Speaking of that, the developers, any redeveloper that comes in has to prove that there is capacity within the sewer to accommodate their project and that there's no negative impact. This is reviewed by the planning board engineer, the planning board, the municipal engineer, the licensed sewer operator, and for the most part, when it reaches a certain capacity, the state, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And they have the burden of proof to show that they have a positive impact on the sewer. They have to prove that to all of those parties. So developers have this burden of proof, and believe me, what is occurring is that they're removing so much stormwater that any units that they build, it's really chump change in comparison to what they're removing from this combined sewer. It's having a very large impact on what can be achieved. So I gave an example here with some aerials, and I thought it was important, and hopefully you can see my cursor. So I just gave a Main Street example, kind of beyond the requirements, just to talk through it. So historically, and in areas that we'll see in need of redevelopment, areas of rehabilitation, what you'll find is you have aged buildings with aged infrastructure. So if we look at this site, this is where 150 Main is constructed. So we have Moore Street, Mercer Street, and Main Street binding this. And this was the existing, this was pre-development. So we had all of these buildings already. We had all of these buildings, we had all of this pavement, all of this concrete. These buildings were collected at the roof. So stormwater falls, a storm comes, stormwater falls on top of these buildings. They collect it, they would combine it with their toilets, with their sinks, and it would all go to the combined sewer. That was happening. Also, flow leaving from the site would go to the combined sewer. This would take up combined sewer capacity that serves the rest of the city. So without a substantial improvement or redevelopment to these buildings, we would still be contributing stormwater from this whole tract of land into the combined sewer. What we see in redevelopment, so if we look below, same footprint, same type of impervious surface. So those are the hard surfaces I was talking about, concrete, pavement, buildings. So let's say that the runoff would be equal, but this developer has to do a few things. This developer collects their stormwater. So in a storm event, the stormwater is not tying into the combined sewer. This stormwater goes directly to the river. That opens up all of that capacity during a rainfall event for the remainder of the drainage area. Further, they have to reduce that stormwater, right? So when we talk about that again, we are opening up additional capacity within the stormwater system of the city for other parts of the city. So by meeting these requirements, a single development greatly reduces the flow during a wet weather event, during a storm event that goes to the combined sewer. This improves the surcharge condition. And then further, they have to prove that the combined sewer or the sewer is in adequate condition for them to tie into. So they do that. So this is something that we frequently see. And I just, again, thought it was important to clarify. Redevelopment improves the city sewer. It has no negative impacts on the city sewer. It can't. And I listed all the people that approve and confirm that it cannot have that. So with that, I wanted to cover active construction. So again, I thought maybe the best update moving forward would be what's ongoing right now. What can you go see and what new authorizations have been granted? Where are we going? So I have a map here, some photos and a little bit of text. Let's start with the map. You see in red, and I'm tracing it, this is the Main Street sewer separation. The Main Street sewer separation project was required to get up into this low-lying area between Passaic Street, Central Avenue, First Street, and Railroad Ave. There is surcharge condition up in this area in as little as a one-year storm. Main Street was required to create the conduit. This is the picture of that conduit I'm talking about. It's a 4 foot wide, 4 foot tall by 5 foot wide box culvert. And you could see how substantial this is compared to the people in this picture. This is very large infrastructure. This is what we need to be able to drain this low-lying area between Railroad Ave and First Street. So in red, this is what was completed. What's under construction now is within the area I'm showing in green. So within green on this screen and what I'm tracing, that's the current active project. And this is called, we call it the Clay Street Sewer Separation Project because we're heading up Clay Street to get into this lower lying area. What this project does is it moves the large conveyance. Again, we're putting in these large box culverts up into this area. This project includes about 1,600 linear feet of box culvert. It's substantial. But what it requires to do that, if you look at this top right picture, you could just imagine how many utilities were within that area. A lot of utility relocation has to happen. So the construction ongoing now, if you were to drive out there, a lot of Union Street has already been excavated and temporarily patched. Clay Street as well, between Park Street and Union. And next week we'll be heading to West Camden Street. And this is utility relocation to allow us to put in these box culverts. So that's what's ongoing now. This construction started back in August. We've made great progress to date. We expect substantial completion of it by April 2022. This is the construction status update, and this is what I had for everyone today.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the council?
Thank you, Erin.
No, thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Aaron.
I think it clears up, a lot of the questions that have been recurring. We really appreciate this. And I think going forward, reporting on the status from, twice a month. So this is, again, you set the stage for where we are on the project right now. If new projects start up, we'll start including them to be monitored. And every 2 weeks, we'll let folks, again, just to be a little bit more transparent about where we are. Here's our expectation, where we're going to be. And when problems happen, we're going to talk about them too. You're opening up underground, for, as you said, utility work. We can't see under there. We don't have radar eyes, and sometimes, there's things there that were unexpected or unplanned, and we need to deal with them and continue to move forward. And that's what's enabled us to get this much work done, being able to just follow that mentality, one step at a time. We know where we have to go. We know we have to get that stormwater down to the river, and we've made great progress. So again, thanks to all the hard work in the city, all of the folks that work for the city that have been part of this, and our engineering firms as well.
That's all that I have on the agenda, Mayor. You're on mute, Mayor.
Sorry, thank you.
No
I
problem.
want to thank Erin for the presentation and look forward to the future presentations. I think that's a big help. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and people sometimes don't understand the whole process of getting this water moved from one place to another and what it involves, especially with utilities in the way. We had a tremendous amount of utilities that needed to be misplaced or worked around when we did the Main Street sewer separation. And I'm sure we're going to find a lot of that, probably not quite as extensive as Main Street, but we'll find quite a lot of that moving forward. But progress has been good, and this time next year, this project should be completed. So that's a good thing. So with that, I need a motion to open to the public.
Offer.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Von Rudenberg. Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilman Battaglia.
Aye.
Councilman Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Okay, anybody from the public would like to speak, please press your wave your hand function on your device, your phone, whatever you want, and you will have 3 minutes. Please give your name to the clerk.
So we do have a few hands raised.
Okay.
So the first would be Gary Terzano.
Hi, good
Gary,
evening.
there?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Caruso to the city of Hackensack.
Thank you, sir.
I think you're going to do a good job. And since you come from Lodi, the governments are pretty close, and we're neighbors anyway. So welcome again, and I look forward, and my environmental commission looks forward to working with you on many of these projects. Feel real positive about the interest tonight. It's been a long time coming. The only thing we ask is that we can be part of the committee to help design. I mean, we're not professionals, but we'll sit with the professionals, the project manager that will be in charge. So we have due diligence in moving the projects along in a pretty quick manner. The two parks to begin with, American Legion, American Legion Drive, and then 1000 Main Street. In the past, I've seen some plans that for certain projects around town that seem to go through a lot of revisions. Working construction in my career, I understand that to a degree. But when the ideas come from the community and from committee, I think it helps cut down on a couple of revisions to finalize a plan to move forward. So that's the only thing we ask, is that we can be in on some of it with some of the ideas. I mean, everybody got a copy of the proposals, the general proposals. It's not written in stone. Like I said, we're not engineers, we're not planners. We understand the procedure before you can put a shovel in the ground with permits and signing off with sealed plans and such. So that's the only thing we ask along those lines. We do have a lot more, as mayor and council, you know, we have a lot of ideas, but the green initiatives has to be addressed as part of the master plan. Susan Banyan was the lead on the study for the open space over the last 2 years, and everybody has a copy of that. So that's the only thing I have to say, is that we move forward as quickly as we can, as possibly in the plan. We know that the parks aren't a top priority after we just heard about the separation of the combined sewer. That's number one in the town. I agree. So that's all I really have to say. We look forward to it. And hopefully we can get a small committee together to sit with everyone and move along. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, so
Next
next
person from the
up-
public?
Yep, next up, we have Dr. Yolanda Hawkins Rogers.
Okay. Hello, doctor. How are you today? Doctor, are you there?
You're still muted.
Doctor, if you can hear me, unmute your
Now?
device. Yes, ma'am. There you are.
Thank you. I just had a point of clarity about the report Erin gave when she talked about the redevelopment areas and how the system was set up now with the new development for the water to go into the river. I wanted to make sure I understood that. Does that also, did I miss the part about where the sewage goes now? Because does this tie in also with what we heard the other day about how I thought the river was at its max when we had these events? So I don't know how that works with this additional water from the redevelopments going directly into the river and how it bypasses all the systems that she talked about the other day. So I'm not clear on that. And where does the sewage goes that comes from these redevelopments? Does it go into our existing system? So I'm just asking for clarity in terms of that. I might have missed something, so I apologize if that was made clear.
Okay, I can answer that, doctor. All new redevelopment, first of all, we separated the sewers, the combined sewers on Main Street already. So all the sewage itself now goes down to the BCUA to be treated. Previously, all stormwater and sanitary sewers, which is your sewage, your waste lines, merged together and went to the BCUA to get treated, which was also an additional expense to the city because you're treating stormwater, not just sewage. That now, and that one building in particular she was talking about, I believe it's 150, 170 Main Street, which will be the large building there, if I'm not mistaken. The sewers are totally separated. All stormwater from these new buildings goes directly into the lines that will go to the river. All right. And all sewage will go to the BCUA to be treated separately. So that was the importance. We were averaging over 70 overflows into the river a year, which was ridiculously high. We're allowed to have 4. So our goal is to, drop that amount drastically as part of the sewer separation plan. And hopefully we can meet that goal one day.
Okay. Thank you. That was all I had to ask this time.
Not a problem. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. So next we have Bridget.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to thank Aaron and the project managers of the city of Hackensack for that informative meeting that we had with the residents. But what I did want to say is Mr. Resident Peter Marcassani, I believe his name is, should not have been on that platform. He comes in to be your cheerleader. And
Right.
that is not, and that is, Leo, if you say one more word, I will, trust me, it'll be a whole different conversation we about to have here.
You don't scare me.
Okay, you'll see, because you don't scare me. And so my narrative here is for him to come onto that platform and to be your cheerleader when people in this area were in a crisis. And here you had Miss Anita Rivers, who lost $100,000 damages to her home. But for him to come on here and tell us about his basement being dry, that was so not called for. And Mayor, you should be ashamed of yourself, because if you think he helps you, no, he only hurts you. Believe what we're saying here. This 3rd and 4th ward has seen enough of flood water, sewer water, just drain water in our homes. We don't want to see it anymore. We want it to be just what you guys did to the downtown area. We want you to do the same here in this area. Because at this very moment, like I said, what he did was disgusting. And he shouldn't have been on there. And when we have the next one with Aaron and the project managers, he is not to be invited. He's just a resident. He's not an engineer. He doesn't work for the city. So he does not need to put his 2 cents in where it is not wanted. Thank you.
Next person, please.
Next up, we have Nina Roots.
Ma'am?
Good evening. Thank you very much, City Council. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Bridget, for your commentary as well. As you all know, I live at 259 Railroad Place, and yes, I have over $100,000 worth of damage, lost both vehicles. My basement has just recently been gutted, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to pay to get it restored. So I'm going to be looking to you, City, to you, Aaron, to you, project managers, to give me sound, wise advice as to how I can restore my home. FEMA has been frightful in terms of what it has decided it will pay. I have received its settlement, the settlement notice, and I cringe. I was floored by the settlement number that they provided. So I'm going to be looking to you, City, to you, Aaron, to you, project managers, for assistance, whether it be by way of grant monies or other kinds of assistance. I have applied for Red Cross in hopes of getting some level of restoration. But what I also wanted to say to Aaron is that I've made note of your commentary that the redevelopment will not impact this community. In fact, you said guaranteed. So I've made note of that. And so moving forward, I expect improvements. And I know it takes time. I'm not unrealistic. I know it takes time. But what do we do in the interim? And what I was trying to communicate to Aaron and the project managers during our meeting was that our problems here in the African American community did not begin with the Main Street redevelopment. Our problems began with the redevelopment on Prospect, when Hackensack rezoned 6 blocks of Prospect Avenue from Essex Street to Passaic Street for high density multifamily housing. And this was back back in 1962. And within just a few years, the first high rises were constructed on both sides of the avenue are now almost walled in by buildings as tall as 21 stories with a total of more than 3,000 apartments. That's when our problems began. So I need your help, City Council. I need your help, Aaron, project managers. I need your help. My neighbor received a parking ticket for parking in the parking lot R during last week's rainstorm. And city manager, I hope to communicate with you about that. But I thank you, city manager, for being very accommodating in terms of my daughter and my rental vehicles. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Rivers. Next person, please.
Okay, next up, we have Sultan.
Yes, Richard Salk, Hackensack. Can you hear me? Is a new setup for me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, couple of things. I came in the middle of Stephen Gelber's presentation, and we can get people's noses off of these screens and into books. It would be a good thing. Did he ask you for an endorsing resolution?
I don't believe he did, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Why don't you, can I make respectfully suggest you reach out to him, see if it would help his application?
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure he was looking for something of that nature, but I don't think we actually mentioned a resolution.
Okay.
But I know he's looking for city,
well, that's okay.
City approval, which probably would come as an endorsing resolution.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Second thing, I was happy to learn from the city attorney you pulled the trigger on the acquisition of the Sears parking lot east side of River Street. My question is the acquisition funds for that contained in the bond ordinance for the construction of the complex? Do you know?
I don't know that, Rick. I would, Steve.
Okay. If you could check, and I'll call the city manager's office. Just curious. I mean, you got to pay for it one way or the other.
Yes, no, but it is a good acquisition. Agreed.
I mean, yeah, the CFO is going to be the one who's going to have that answer on the tip of his tongue. So probably even more than the city manager.
True. I didn't even know you were there, Steve. All right. Finally, and I know Mr. Caruso's just started. Welcome, sir. Atlantic Street. I would hope you would take a drive down there. Mr. LeBroy, so I don't know what time you get done with work at the medical center. I'm not stalking you, I promise. But it would really be good if you went over there like 4:45, 10 to 5, and see what happens when people are stopped there parking, waiting to pick up, I guess, their relatives from work. Atlantic Street's narrow. Anybody who's parked there, including that bus, causes traffic going east to go into the oncoming lane. Look, I don't want to be an alarmist, but it's not, if it's left alone, it's not a question of if something really bad is going to happen. It's a question of when. I know Mr. Ehrenberg, may he rest in peace, was started to look at it and move the bus stop, but I don't think he was done. And I hope Mr. Caruso, with your law enforcement background, I hope you'll take a look at it and see if we can make some improvements. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, next up we have Victor G.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just one thing, Leo. You got to stop doing that. People have the right to express what they feel and what they know. They don't need no comments, some back comments from you telling them what they can't do or no smart remark. So we would appreciate you stop doing that, because when the city council goes back whenever to in-person meetings, I doubt you'd be saying all them things. So I wish you would stop that and don't disrespect the community. All right, Leo, please stop it, because it's not a good look for a city council person to be doing that. Like you don't have the right to do that to a person who's a taxpayer in this city. That's all for now.
Next person, please.
That was the last person from the public.
With that, motion to close to the public.
Wait, there is a last minute hand raise.
Okay. Do we have a name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter?
Peter Marcus, Andy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yeah, I just want to say I'm here on the call. I appreciate everything the council's done. I continue to be your cheerleader. I think you guys do a great job. I want to welcome Mr. Caruso, Vincenzo. Thank you very much for taking on this responsibility. I also want to fill in some of the comments that were made. I had sent a note to all of the council members a while ago to Mr. Caruso with some suggestions as to how perhaps Aaron could do a presentation on the CAL meetings that would maybe be a little bit more explicit than what we were seeing before, that maybe the maps would be a little bit more clear. Maybe we would have a PowerPoint presentation and maybe we would have some graphic displays. And I must say, you know, what Aaron has done tonight is really quite remarkable, quite appreciated. And I want to thank her for that. And I think the community, when they see that, can get a better feel as to what is actually going on. Because I sent that note to the council and to Mr. Caruso, he was kind enough to invite me to this meeting that he was having with some of the residents. He said, why don't you just come online tomorrow and join the meeting, which I did. At the time, I expressed gratification that some of the initial phases that were taking place in the stormwater separation were going to have a direct positive impact on members of the Black community living in the described zones that were elaborated by Aaron. For some reason, what's her name? Bridget, I think, took exception to that. And of course, in her usual fashion, I hate to say this, but it got very explicit, almost to the point of what is this guy doing here? You know, he doesn't belong here, as if it was an exclusive meeting. So I guess maybe I said a few things that she didn't appreciate. And if I did, I apologize. I certainly don't apologize for the fact that I wanted to make a contribution to the good things that are going on with the sewer separation, as well as other things that the city is doing. And I don't want to pursue it any further than that. I do think, however, maybe at these meetings that are closed meetings, if that's the proper expression, are not a good idea. Maybe the city attorney can say, you know, some of these things are okay for an ad hoc meeting with some residents. But perhaps if we're going to discuss something on such a broad scale, maybe town halls would be more appropriate. Of course, we're not doing that with COVID, but we should probably open this up to a broader segment of the public than just those select few who think they're entitled to the meeting and who also think that a guy by the name of Peter Marcus Andy has no business being in the meeting. That's beyond my scope, and I don't want to pursue it any further. But I do thank you for all you do, and I thank you for your time. And have a good night.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else from the public like to speak?
There are no more hands raised.
With that, I need a motion to close to the public.
Offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 None opposed. Okay, with that, need a motion to close the executive, or actually, we're going to go back in on executive?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So we have some unfinished business from the executive session, which we have to go back into closed for a little while. We expect to be back out for our normal starting time of 8 o'clock for the council meeting. So I need to close the council of the whole. I need a motion.
Offer.
We have to close it
Second.
after we get out of executive, because executive is part of the committee of the whole.
Okay, so we're going to wait. So at this point, everybody should have a new invite to go back into executive session. And we will see everybody right around 8 o'clock.
And that is
And
from
Mayor-
Allison, right?
I'm sorry?
The invitation come from Allison now? The old one that we got there?
I just resent out a new email around, must have been around 6 o'clock, that have the details for the executive session.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
And I will add, Mayor, at the end of when we start the regular meeting, I'll make the announcement of the cases that were discussed, since I've got at least one more case I need to bring up. So